Well, this has been a long time in the making.
Has has how long? A year?
I remember first contacting you ages ago. Anyway, um, thank you so much for joining me today. Do you want to start off by telling the lovely people who you are?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Hello, Adam. Thank you for having me here. I'm Hannah. I'm Hannah Parvaz. I'm the founder of a growth agency and consultancy called Aperture. I've been in the kind of mobile space for way over a decade now. I was in-house head of growth at four different companies. I started, yeah, a while ago now, more than a couple of years. So yeah, I'm a bit of an old hat in the space. I've been running product and marketing. I've been running ads and onboarding and monetization and data and doing all of these things at various different companies over the years. So I've got a good breadth of knowledge about things. And yeah, within my company now, we work across the entire funnel. So we work with a lot of companies on their paid ads and creative strategy and media buying, attribution, this kind of side of things, which is how we kind of started to get to know each other. And then on the other side of the business, we work on product strategy, monetization strategy, like funnel, like onboarding funnels, paywalls, deep retention, and so on as well. So yeah, it's
The
really
kind of
awesome and
the
really
full life
exciting.
cycle almost.
Full life cycle. And yeah, for me, I love working on various different projects and getting data points from all kinds of different places. It just helps me kind of understand more about the world and about how people work and about how products work and things like this. So yeah, I really love it. And I'm really excited to be here today with you.
Fantastic. So I guess we've been I've been very slow and not managed to throw you out any questions. So I thought it'd be more fun just to do this completely ad hoc and try and work out where we
Here
go
we
with this
go.
conversation. Um, so you were sort of saying that you've been doing a lot recently with companies that are moving from, let's say, app to web and web to app. I find that really interesting in the logic of why, I guess the logic of why you would move away from mobile towards web. Although that said, I've seen it quite a lot recently as well. Have you got any
Yeah.
thoughts as to why this is happening?
Why companies are moving away from mobile and towards web. There are
Yeah,
a
yeah.
variety of different things. And yeah, I'm seeing a lot of companies go from web to mobile, but also mobile to web. And with those companies that are moving towards web, I mean, you definitely saw a couple of months ago the ruling in the US after the kind of Epic Games case, which said that now you're allowed to have paywalls in your app in the US that are
Yeah.
um, not tied to the App Store. So you're not paying that Apple commission. But that's a part of it. So that's kind of in-app purchases, which
But
are
that's
related,
only
but
if you
also you
don't
can link
have
out.
that's only if you don't have a physical product that you're selling a physical product, right? Because if you're selling a physical product like Amazon or something, they've never had to contend with the
No.
30%
Or
on top
events.
anyway.
Yeah, or events. Like one of my first apps that I worked at was a music ticketing app. And so we just integrated with Stripe. So it
Yeah,
wasn't until I got into subscription products a few years after that that I was like, oh my God. Like, and at the time I got in
there's a
to
30%
subscription
tax.
products, it was just 30% on all, even if you were a new kind of new product that wasn't at 1 million ARR. But then later on they brought out the
Yeah,
15%
they sort of
for
halved it to help smaller companies. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And to be fair, like the second year is at 15% as well. So even if, you're subscribing at 30%, then next second year's at 15. So all of this stuff is all happening at the same time. But at the same time, also Apple kind of shot themselves a little bit in the foot with pushing people towards web because of the deprecation of tracking that they gave everybody a few years ago, over 4 years ago now. It's
with the
crazy how
lovely
long
SK
ago
ad
that was.
network. Yep.
So that happened May 2021. And I was on a podcast or a webinar with someone recently, and they said that was 2 years ago. I was like, no, no, that was over
Nope.
4 years ago. So yeah, it's crazy how long ago that's been. But at that time, hopefully everyone who's listening knows, but Apple removed IDFA, identifier for advertisers, unless you opted in, which meant that as an advertiser, you couldn't see really where someone came from. So since then, there's been a lot of kind of reactionary products coming out, which has been really cool. Like Meta's AEM, like lots of companies are are kind of, I mean, AppsFire with single source of truth, like things like this to try and give the advertiser a little bit more visibility. But one of the things that that was never really impacting was web. And so whenever people, I mean, for me, I've always been building products with a web flow, with a web version. Like
Mm.
it's always been a huge part of our kind of my SEO strategies for companies and things like this. When I worked at the music ticketing app, I knew it was over a decade ago. Like we were still advertising things on Twitter, X, and like I needed to have a link to every single
Yeah,
place. Like, and you
yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
deep link really at that
Does,
time as easily.
does organic
So
is organic still a thing on web? Like, I mean, I know there are organic numbers on mobile still, but in terms of store discovery and that kind of thing, especially in gaming, it's got very, very, very difficult to sort of find and get numbers organically. So, is that part of the reason? Is it still possible
mm,
to run a good SEO campaign? A good SEO strategy and actually get people in organically?
I think, yeah, if you're still working on it, it is hard, and in games hard as well. But if you're a content product, for example, and you have that content offering where you can kind of programmatically create thousands and thousands of pages and then
Mm,
start to rank on these things, it has been very effective. So like I've worked with kind of core like book summary products and um, fitness products and cooking products and things like this, and where it makes sense for them to kind of programmatically launch all of these different pages, it can work really well. Runner, for example, Miranda Payne was recently talking about their SEO strategy around posting out loads and loads of pages as well, and it's still been very, very effective for them, and
mm,
for me too, with a lot of companies. So PR is definitely still a major thing, which is more web. Like I see that PR as an SEO exercise. Like my some of my most successful campaigns ever have been SEO campaigns that
yeah,
I've
for
run through
sure.
PR. Like in like individual initiatives that have driven the most downloads and things like that have still sometimes been PR. Like you're not always going to get a hit, but when you do, it's a big one. And then things like, I mean, organic social, like that is still one of the biggest drivers for growth. So on web, but also obviously heavily on mobile as well. So there are a
Mm.
lot of different things that are going to help you with that spread. And also all of these things are symbiotic. So with your paid ads, the day that you're going to have your best performance on paid ads is whenever you have a TV feature, or you've got a double page spread in the Telegraph or things like this, because there's this kind of brand resonance that happens in this little pocket of time, and so then your ad performance performs better, or when you get an influencer posting about you, your ads will perform better and things like this. So whenever we've worked with companies that have a really big online presence and then they're launching ads or launching a digital product, we tend to see very good performance because they've already got that brand capital.
Is that where some companies can fail if they're just running? If they're thinking, "Hey, user acquisition, I'm just going to pay, Facebook, Google, whoever it may be, a chunk of money, and I'm going to get all of my users come in." Like, should this all be part of the overarching strategy?
I would say that there are, of course, outliers. There could be apps that are just doing ads and not doing anything else, but I do see over and over again that the products in general that are doing other things are the ones that are most successful. So the ones that have a really big organic following or are really active on social media, or they're doing partnerships, or they've got referral loops built into their product, and paid ads is just something going in the top of that funnel to accelerate that organic viral loop, and things like this. So I would always try and think of paid ads as a part of my strategy. And when I was running growth inside companies as well, paid ads was a part of what I was looking after and what I was doing, but we were also doing loads of other things. We were also working on SEO. We were also getting social media posts out. We were also doing partnerships. Partnerships can't be undervalued as well, because that helps you with brand capital, brand association. It can get you like the foot in the door about different things.
Okay, what sort of things are we
Um,
talking about with partnerships? just
so
so I
for
just so I understand.
example, So, for example, whenever I was working previously at a nightlife app, we partnered with some news publications to run events, and they were then my background was I was an event planner, like in music. I was a tour manager. So
Amazing.
I've been planning a loads of events for like nearly 20 years, which makes me sound even older. But within that, then like we partnered with them. We ran an event called London Cocktail Month. So they were promoting it a lot. We ran like specific events during that time. Like we ran a summer party where people could enter to come down. That got covered in other publications because of this partnership we were doing. And
And that
I was
has a
doing that on
knock-on
our own.
effect.
Yeah, it just wouldn't have been as powerful, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And there have been loads of other campaigns I've run, like organic campaigns. Like for that same company, I ran a Valentine's Day campaign on our own, and it did get picked up by Time Out and things like this. But if we had partnered on it, then you just get a bigger splash.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so for me as well in B2B, like because now I run a B2B company essentially. So my marketing strategy from my business is different than it is when I'm going to one to many in that same way with a consumer product. Um, has been a lot of partnerships as well. Like a lot of it is kind of relationship dependent and things like this. But yeah, for consumer products, you really need to be thinking about a lot of things. There's a one app. I was speaking to the founders recently, and they've grown to over 1 million downloads just by posting carousels on TikTok.
That's impressive. That's really
Like
impressive.
what? Just by posting carousels on TikTok. You look at their page. I'll send you it after, and you can see like pretty much their fitness app. Loads of the pictures are just like selfies in the mirror that you swipe across, and it's like talking about the product.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
over 1 million installs from that. And now they've just started advertising, but they've got that foundational history in the account where now they're just doing Spark ads and getting really great results.
Amazing.
So
Oh, it
if I
reminds me
could,
of
would I go on?
I remember interviewing three guys. I think they were called Paradigm, and
Yeah.
they created this game. They just three developers created this game, and it got picked up by a couple of influencers. You know, sort of Twitch, YouTube, those kind of things. And they had like 52 million installs without running
Crazy.
any paid at all. It was in phenomenal. Like yeah.
It's still possible. It's absolutely still possible. And it's just that, especially when you start with paid ads, it gets very addictive. So once you've seen that and you've built that, like it's hard to escape from.
But that's
But
what a
once,
lot of
if you can
business
build a
models are
loop,
now built on, though. Like you
yeah,
know, you have this understanding of what the output will be from the machine that you have, based on the amount of user acquisition that you're spending to bring into the machine in the first place.
I think a part of that is that we're so susceptible to outside powers as well when we're only reliant on this one thing. And we hear Mark Zuckerberg talking about what his plans are for Meta. I'm sure have you seen this? Like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
just says, for anyone listening, like he just says recently, I want to have a system where you can just plug in your URL and plug in your credit card and press go.
And we do
Like
everything else.
we do it, yeah. They do the copywriting, they do the ad creation, they do the adding music to your creative. They do, you know, is this going to be compliant with your brand? I don't know. Are they going to be saying the right things? Are they going to be making claims that you're not allowed to make? No one knows what this world would look like, but what I'm illustrating this for is because things are going to be changing quite dramatically. They have been changing quite dramatically. We're launching with some of our companies hundreds of ads per week. And this is not the scale that we had been seeing before. You know,
No, but
things are changing
this is all
rapidly.
AI driven, right? Like the hundreds of ads per week is only
It's
possible because of the
because
AI.
of AI.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's AI assistants in there, like for voiceovers, for things like this as well. One of our companies that we're working with they're a content product first and foremost. So they've got years worth of historical footage that they're b-rolling together, and then overlaying with voiceovers, and we're just doing different hooks for them as well. So just
yep.
shooting like 50 different hooks, literally like 50 different hooks for a video, so that we can get those learnings really, really quickly. And it's performing well. Like it's going really well. But yeah, with other companies, we're doing a lot of VEO3. VEO3, you can now our content strategist showed me, like he's on it. He showed me that they can now export in vertical. So I had been kind of getting my horizontal, extending them, using Sora, getting videos from there. But now we can actually use VO3 in vertical. Like you can use tools like
Just
Icon
straight
and
off the
that
bat.
plug into VO3, and everything's changing. So
Yeah.
if we're not adapting to that, like we're going to fall behind quite quickly. And I don't think that by 2026 we'll be able to just, like Mark optimistically says, put in just our credit card and our URL and get ads
Yeah.
that will be working. But
It's
it
getting in that
we're not far
direction though.
away.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not far away. But at the
But
same
then
time,
with, I mean, you
go
said
on.
120 creatives a week. Did you say?
Some hundreds, but it really depends on their spend levels. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not saying it's
but
hundreds of
then,
creatives for a 20K account. It's like for £1 million
yeah,
account
yeah,
at
for sure.
least.
But to me, that you end up, unless you have a really good strategy, you end up with the problem of not knowing what's working and what isn't. You're creating hundreds and hundreds and hundreds
Yeah,
of creatives, but the
yeah.
testing element of that, I mean, that's a hell of a A/B testing plan as well that you're going to need to put into effect.
Yeah. Well, what we do is we have naming conventions, very, very long naming conventions that detail all of the different elements of the ads. Like you can have, I think, 200 character long naming conventions on Meta. So we take up as much of that as
As much
possible
of it as
with all
possible,
of
right?
it's like such so long. Like, and then we export all of that through the API into our own dashboards. So then
Yeah.
we can pull out what are these trends? What are we seeing? How are we iterating from that? And ultimately, we don't start accounts like that. Like we're not saying day one we're launching 200 creators.
No, of
Let's
course, of
go.
course.
We start slow and we ramp up once we've got those learnings. So we might start with 4 or 8 creatives about some themes, and then we take our learnings from that, and then we expand out from that, and then we take our learnings from that, and we expand out for that, and then
Yeah.
only when we start to kind of go down this kind of decision tree of lots of different learnings, then do we start scaling up, because we might have 50 different ways of saying this very specific theme. And, within those 50 different creatives, you can have, or let's say 40 different creatives, you could have 10 like text hooks and then 10 visual hooks. Oh, sorry, 4 visual hooks. That's already 40 creatives. So
Mm.
you're testing a lot of these combinations that are working, and ultimately the algorithm. We're talking about meta here, guys, by the way, but ultimately the algorithm is going to pick up on that very, very quickly. So within a few thousand impressions or less, like it's going to know which ones are going to pick up. And then we do like a lot of manual pruning, graduating into always on campaigns from those tests, things like this. But we've been seeing really great results with it. Like sometimes what we're struggling most with is just our limitations around volumes that you can have live in the account. But this is helping us.
Hitting the maximums.
Yeah, we're like, oh my God, we can only run 1,000 creatives until you're spending 1 million. But
So
yeah,
what?
it's
Okay, so I got one. What's the, like? I've seen we're saying that changing up creatives and everything, and there's this the whole thing around creative fatigue and everything else. I understand the logic behind it. In reality, I've had a few companies that I've talked to that have been very much like, we've had one creative that we've been using from the beginning, and
for
every
sure.
time we try something different, it doesn't work as well as the one creative. What would you suggest that they try and do? Or
What I
doesn't it
would
matter?
say, yeah, I mean, if you have one creative that's been working for that long, that's amazing. But and I have been in that circumstance as well, but what we always have to remember is that creative diversity will improve the overall numbers and the overall performance as well. So if someone is seeing just that same message over and over again, and by the way, I had one ad at a previous audio journalism company that I ran, the growth ad call, and the ad copy was become the most interesting person in the room. And maybe you've seen that around on ads now,
I've
but
seen that quite a few times.
yeah, so that was written at my previous company, Curio. I won an award there, subscription at campaign of the year for that copy that we wrote. I have a great interview with James Cooper about it. I'll send you it after. You don't need to
Yeah,
watch it,
amazing.
but it is a good one. And then yeah, that got kind of appropriated by pretty much every other company that you've ever seen now, because it was so effective. And that is a line that hasn't saturated. But what you have to do is also think about how can we use these different kind of jigsaw pieces in different ways. And so what we have to think about as well is, okay, we've got this one creative that's working, but what are the other supplementary messages that might work alongside it? Like, are we also doing educational stuff? How are we keeping the rest of the audience warm? Because actually, reach campaigns are now back. Reach campaigns are back. Like, a few years ago, 8 years ago, I would never have run reach campaigns because the algorithm was targeting broader, but now it actually
Explain,
targets.
sorry, explain the terminology reach campaign.
So on Meta, or on any of the platforms, you have different types of goals that you can have within your campaign. So you might have top of funnel awareness, and within an awareness campaign, you can have impressions. So I'm optimizing for the amount of times people see my ads, or you can have a reach campaign, which is optimizing for the amount of people that are going to see my ad. And so that might be, I say, I only want people to be able to see my ads 2 times in 7 days. So that means within that campaign, then it has to spend that budget on reaching new people. And the goal is to reach as many people as possible. And so this is one of the ways to open up your audience a little bit more. And when I've been working with some companies, like we're working with and this Italian company, and they've got massive brand capital in Italy, and we were running our ads. We're scaling up. We're spending about 500,000 on this account on Meta, and we were seeing like a very high audience overlap, even though our reach wasn't the whole country. And it was because the rest of the audience hadn't been kind of like warmed up to be able to be hit by these conversion campaigns. Because when
Right.
you're optimizing for a conversion, like deep in the funnel, like a purchase or, activated trial, plus you've done these 3 core actions because we're doing signal engineering and we see that this is the kind of specific user that's going to convert on that.
Yeah.
The algorithm only thinks a certain amount of people are going to be the ones that are going to do that. So it will hit those people again and again. And it doesn't actually expand out beyond that very much. And I went to Meta's event in April where they spoke more about this and how the algorithm now over targets people and frequencies are increasing. So what we have to do is manually force away from that a little bit and actually, unless we have this kind of amazing brand, organic brand presence anyway, we have to then force some reach so that then we're warming up more people. So you used to hear about like top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. We have to think a little bit about that top of funnel, where we're hitting as many people as possible with these kind of educational messages or brand awareness messages to get people to hear about us, and then they might be warmer to expand out that pool of people who are deeper in the funnel for our conversion campaigns. And so whenever we did that for that Italian company, for example, we ran our reach campaigns, our overall costs dropped quite dramatically. And actually, because of their brand capital, they were having a lot of view throughs. So even though we were excluding anyone who'd ever purchased from our reach campaigns, just seeing that ad was driving a lot of purchases because it's quite a young audience as well, like majority below 35. So people below 35 click less. They want to go and search on Google or search on the App Store instead of clicking. So we're getting a lot of view throughs, which you can't capture on an app install campaign.
Yeah.
So we can capture those on a reach campaign though, and you can see how those conversions are coming through. So there are anyway, what I'm trying to say is there are lots of different ways to be thinking about your account. But what the algorithm now is prioritizing is just hitting the same people over and over again. You're having a lot of audience overlap. So if we're running 3 campaigns, they're going to have like a 72% audience overlap. So you're bidding against yourself. You're not getting the delivery. So how can we force that to open up? You just have to force it a little bit with reach.
But so each of those different styles of campaigns would then use different styles of creative, presumably. So it's not the same creative that they're seeing every single time.
Again, I would start with just the same creatives because ultimately the people who aren't getting the main conversion campaigns aren't seeing those initial ads anyway. And as you're refreshing, you're going to be refreshing your creatives quite continuously anyway. So there'll always be new things going in. But ultimately, what I'm graduating into awareness are creatives that have like a strangely low CPM or a strangely high CTR, because I want to engage people with them.
Yeah.
So I'm not like, oh, this is a really high converting ad. I'm putting that into awareness. I'm like, oh, this one has like a 5% click through rate. Let me put that into awareness, or things like this, like way above benchmark, so that it's just
Yeah.
getting more people engaging with it at
More
top of funnel
traction. Yeah.
to get the algorithm to pay attention to them a little bit more.
And do you generally use like custom product pages, as the next step in the funnel there?
So yeah, it depends really. We try and use at least a custom product page across the entire account, so that we can just understand what reality looks like a little bit closer. I mean, custom product pages are not reality, obviously, but what we see in Meta is always, and I did a post about this the other day, but what we see in Meta is always the worst case scenario when it comes to app ads now, like in 100% of the cases I've seen. So I shared some data on that post, but I
This is
click
LinkedIn.
you
This is LinkedIn,
on
and
LinkedIn.
you should follow Hannah
Uh,
on LinkedIn because she's very very good.
Thank you, Adam. Um, but I shared something like, essentially, I had 100 installs on Meta, I had 120 on AppsFire, I had 160 on my custom product page. And then your custom product page is even without view through. So your custom product page is still your worst case scenario. And so we have this there so that we can understand a little bit more about what reality looks like and start to triangulate reality a little bit clearer. So we have this usually as a baseline. But then as we start to split things out by themes, split things out by like the areas that we're optimizing around, then yeah, we would also be creating custom product pages around those specific themes to add to those ads. Or if we're having some ad that's getting really high click-through rate, but not as high click to install, we would create custom product pages around this so that we can unify that journey a bit more. For example, one of our companies haven't worked on their app. We don't look after their app store, but they hadn't worked on their app store for a few months, since September, and we've been pitching to them like, okay, I will just audit it for you. I'll tell you what to do, and we can get that design made up for you. Because at the moment we're getting measured on our post-install events, but
Yeah,
their app click to install is like 12%,
yeah, yeah,
and
and that
that's not
affects
very
everything, and
high.
people don't realize that
So
that affects
I'm
everything. Yeah,
like, let's just work on this so that we can actually improve the overall metrics and increase spend and increase performance overall. And so we have to think about these things. So with them, like I'm not even doing it as a custom product page to begin with. It's just I'm overhauling their app store listing because 12%, like, am I going to go down from that? Probably not.
yeah, yeah,
I'm looking
yeah.
for at least 30% as my baseline, but with some custom product pages on specific messages, we've got that up to 60, 70, 80% sometimes. Click to
Mm.
install. So you can get significant gains from that. And then also since
And
September, as you know,
it's
last year,
generally
yeah, go on.
you would generally link that to the creative in terms of a on a theme
Yeah,
level, yeah. So you would do a campaign. You talked about music industry earlier, so you're doing a campaign across a specific genre of music or something like
yeah,
that, and you would follow that down onto the product page and everything as well.
exactly. And you can even now, since September, deep link your custom product pages. So you can link them into a flow inside your app. So you could have a flow inside your app that was of specific genre as well,
Yeah, yeah,
and make it look like, okay, this is actually a app for this genre.
yeah.
Or,
Or this
I
app's
there
been made
was
for me.
this app is made for me, it's perfect. And
Yeah.
so you can do all of this. Most people are now on iOS 18. And so as long as you're on iOS 18, you can follow that deep linked flow. And so, yeah, we are seeing really great results with this. It takes a bit of work, but when you get it right, it
All
can
good
work really
things
well.
do.
No, yeah, good things. Yeah, no good thing is worth like, I'm not saying that phrase right. All good things are hard work. Yeah. Our process always starts is with customer psychology, it's with behavior analysis, it's with understanding jobs to be done, it's with psychographic research. And we take all of this information and then we start to do our tests around specific themes, or messaging tests. And then from there, we start to develop them out. So we
So
kind of
that
continuously.
is where you would always start. Then is like the user base.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't just kind of randomly think of ads. We have an entire process around this. And so we always start with the audience.
Mm.
Like that is the most important thing. Who are these people? What is the message that's resonating with them? How can we get them to convert? What was in their minds whenever they really heard about our product? What did they feel when they downloaded it? What were expectations versus reality? And we want to do these kind of well, and I just call them customer psychology and conversations. I don't call them user interviews or product interviews. I call them psychology conversations
Yeah.
because I want to hear how they articulate themselves. And I also, and the words that they use, the very specific words. And then I want to find out about what's important for them, what they're trying to achieve, and things like this.
Well,
And so I
you're
always
really
start
trying to
here.
understand the various different personas that
Yeah.
make up that user base, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I always start with the audience, like you say. But then in terms of my actual media buying strategy, I do keep it broad. I put in these different messages that have come directly from the audience, and then I keep it as broad as possible, like to the lowest common denominator. So I have worked with companies that are only for men or only for women, and so I might do an audience cut on gender for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I'm keeping it as broad as possible. For subscription apps, generally, I am excluding below 25 um, as my account, like as an account control. So I'm not delivering to them. They do deliver lovely cost per trials, but they don't convert as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and nice cost per installs, but ultimately you're going to make your money from people who are older than 25 in general. It's
Yeah.
not, there are exceptions, but I'm just
It's a
meaning
disposable
general.
income thing, isn't it?
Exactly, and you can understand why. So later on, as we're scaling out, we might then create like specific audience for a specific very niche segment or something like that. But again, like for scaling in general, like we do keep them very, very broad, and we're trying to just increase then the size of that broad audience. Because as I say, if we're optimizing for a deep in the funnel event, we might still only be targeting 10% of the population. So how can I increase that continuously with those messages? And then I have different strategies on different accounts, what makes sense based on their product and their audience. But sometimes we might cut our ad sets by placement. Like for one of our companies, carousels are working extremely well.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, let's actually maybe make just carousel ad set. So, because they don't get a lot of
Let's double
delivery, but
down on
when
it.
they get
Yeah.
delivery, it works super well. But then for others, we might cut on age. So some creatives that are working well with younger audiences and some that are working well with the older audiences. Or with others, we might cut on theme, but keep the ad sets broad. And then we see that the themes themselves are being targeted to different audiences as well. So there are a few different ways then of managing it as you scale.
Yeah.
If I'm
Yeah.
spending less than probably 100K though, I'm still just having basically one ad set
Yeah. Yeah.
where I can one testing campaign, one always on campaign, a bit of awareness. Because I'd always have, even if you're first launching, I'd still always run a bit of awareness now, even if it's just a few pounds a day, a few dollars a day.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. Have you got any tips of like where people can start, what people should do when they're first looking into user acquisition? Maybe they've just moved into the role and they're sort of starting to extend it for a company, or a company's just starting to think, maybe CEOs just starting to think, right, I need to start looking at user acquisition. Where should they start apart from talking to you?
Apart from reading my LinkedIn, um, they really need to start with understanding the customer. Ultimately, we forget a lot of the time that the old principles of advertising are still true. We need to have an
Massively so.
understanding
Yeah.
of persuasion. Like, so what are the techniques that we can tap into? There's a great book called Persuasion by Cialdini. I don't know if you've read it, but it talks about the different 7 principles of persuasion, which are like liking. So if you like something, you're more likely to do it. So that's about social proofing. There is reciprocity. So if you do something for someone, they're likely to do it back. So that gives you ideas for campaigns. So reading some of the greats, reading Alchemy, which is another great book by Rory Sutherland. Like reading about this if you're really truly new and you're thinking about creative as well. And then I would also start by talking to your customers because you have to have that baseline understanding. If you're talking to your customers, I'd recommend reading this 110-page long book called The Mom Test, which helps you understand how to ask the right questions to them. And then I would pull out all of my different themes that I'm spotting from these conversations, and then I would start testing those themes. Really simple. You don't need to overthink it, honestly. And the people that are overthinking it aren't doing it right. But at the very beginning, staying creative and Self plug. If you sign up to my newsletter, I have a whole presentation about this that's linked in the welcome email with examples of how this works, and templates that you can copy, for example, for this. But yeah, I would start with just my messaging
I'll put your
tests.
links down there so people can click on it.
And yeah, so you start with the messaging test, same creative, different messages on it, and then start running those and seeing which one is working. So you can start to follow that path, follow that tree branch down a little bit. So yeah, I would say you have to learn about it, understand the platform itself. If you're running mobile, you have to like integrate your SDK or your MMP so that you can actually see your installs even. Um, and then yeah, just get really comfortable with the data. But again, you can always message me about it and I'll try and give you some tips too.
And what networks would you start with?
Ultimately, your network chooses you. You don't get to choose your network. But a really good one to get started with is just Meta. They have over 3 billion daily active users. So that's a lot.
And I guess the level of targeting in terms of, you've got
Yeah,
age, you've got gender, you've got all sorts of different metrics that you
yeah.
can allocate.
I exactly. I stay within the walled gardens, mostly. I do a little bit of playing outside, but I'm usually in there. So I'm usually in Meta, TikTok, Google, um, Reddit, Pinterest, like these kinds of ones.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I would say if your product, it makes sense for your product, sometimes it is TikTok. For some of your products, it actually might make sense to be Google. Like if you have a really high search volume in general for this kind of specific message, actually Google search might be your friend. And then combining that with a web flow. So you really have to think about what makes sense for your product, what makes sense for your team, and then take it from there. Like your channel chooses you. You don't get to necessarily choose. But a good kind of all-rounder is Meta. You get Facebook, you get Instagram, you get Threads, you get Messenger, you get Audience Network, you get all of these different places, and you're starting to get learnings across all of these things. Um, so yeah, I usually start there, and then we tend to see there's about an 85% overlap on the creatives that are working well, across TikTok, for example, and things like this.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute treasure. And yeah, I can't wait till the next time. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a next time.
For sure. No, absolutely. It was really nice to do this with you. It was a really good conversation. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.